Hey, mamas, and welcome back to the Knitting Mamas podcast. Happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are doing well. Today, we're going to talk about a great topic for everybody out there who is listening to the podcast and is like, I want to start knitting, but I don't know where to begin. So today, we're going to dive into the first 3 steps that I think are the best to take in order to get your knitting journey started. So let's go. Hey there, Mama. Welcome to the Knitting Mamas podcast. If you're a mom who's tired of feeling exhausted and longing for some well-deserved self-care and rest, you are in the right place. I know that finding time for yourself as a busy mom can feel like an impossible puzzle. But guess what? You don't have to compromise anymore. Hi, I'm your host, Nadine Medina, and just like you, I am a mom, wife, and also a happy knitter. Over my 15 years of motherhood, I have been on a journey to discover how to truly recharge without the guilt and the never-ending quest for perfection. The secret? It's all about progress, not perfection. By focusing on simple routines, natural wellness solutions, and the cozy art of knitting, I found the path to feeling whole and content. And on this podcast, I'm sharing it all with you so you can do the same. Are you ready to find simple solutions to set yourself free from mom guilt, to take more time for yourself to truly rest, and to use your knitting skills for a mindful routine that creates space in your life so you can breathe easier? Let's take a deep breath, grab those knitting needles, and say goodbye to mom stress. Together, we'll create a supportive community that encourages you to prioritize self-care while juggling all your responsibilities. Sound good? Let's do this. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Knitting Mamas podcast. So excited that you guys are here. I'm always happy to come up with new things to talk about on this podcast. But if you have something that you want me to address, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me on Instagram at the Knitting Mamas. Just send me a DM there, and I'm happy to hear your suggestions as to what you want to listen to or hear about on this podcast in the future. So, I talk a lot about using knitting for self-care, how it relates to stress relief for busy moms specifically, because that's what I am. And it has helped me in the last 4 years to really calm down, not calm down, but slow down, calm down too, probably. But to slow down and kind of, disconnect from social media more, or just in general from screen time. And you hear me talk about finding the time for knitting is just such an important thing. But I do hear from a lot of people out there that they would love to, reap the benefits of this craft, but they just don't know where to start because they're just not a knitter yet. And I wanted to direct this episode towards all of you guys who are kind of intimidated by it because it is looking a little complicated. I actually shared a funny reel the other day where it was just a reel from someone else, and it was something along the lines of, knitting is supposed to be so relaxing is what everybody says, but really in the beginning, it just drives you crazy. And I don't know that that's true because I learned it at 15 or 14 from my grandma, and I don't remember it being frustrating. And I think if you can learn it as a teenager, you can learn it as an adult. I honestly think that if you take your time to really get into it, it can be so fun and you do not have to get frustrated. However, if you do ever feel like, I don't know what I'm doing, or this is just not working for me, just come over into the Knitting Mamas community on Facebook. You can find us at bit.ly/The Knitting Mamas. I'm going to put that in the show notes as well so you can see it. But just hop on over in there and we can solve your problem, hopefully in there. And if not, you will definitely be able to do it in the Knit and Chill Circle, which is a monthly get-together that we do via Zoom in our community. So once you're in the group, you will also see the events for the monthly Knit and Chill Circle. As a matter of fact, the next one is today. Of course, you may not be listening to it in time. It happens around the lunch hour on the Eastern time zone. So if you missed that already, no worries. Come into the group anyway, and we'll get you set up with the next one so that you can just join us there, either knit along with us, or if not, ask your questions. So let's get into my personal recommendations as to your first 3 steps if you want to get started with knitting. So I think the first step is to find a simple beginner pattern. And I know that there's so many out there. I'm going to put my favorite designers into the show notes for you so that you can actually kind of browse around and see what they have to offer. But there's so many amazing patterns that you can literally do. And I've said this in the past, with one knitting stitch. You don't need to know the whole, like all the stitches, all the different ways to decrease, increase, make patterns, make cables. I don't even know how to make cables. I'll be very honest with you. And I've knitted so many projects that look advanced, but they aren't, right? So that is definitely out there for you. And some examples for a very simple beginner pattern, and that is also a satisfying one, is just a simple scarf, a loop scarf, an infinity scarf, or even a simple t-shirt. Don't freak out. They look so much harder than they actually are. Because if you think about it, a t-shirt is really just a few, straight, simple boxes. Like it's just a square or a rectangle. You make that 2 times and then you have a t-shirt. That's it. So it has like little sleeves that kind of fall down over your shoulders, but it doesn't even have to have a separate sleeve. So it's that simple. And I promise there's some really nice ones out there. The benefits of finding a very simple beginner pattern for you when you completely just starting out is it's obviously quick to complete, make it a fast one. And it helps you build the confidence that you can actually do this, right? And obviously it's going to teach you basic techniques, which again, look for one that only uses one stitch. You only need the knit stitch, which will result in a garter stitch pattern. And if you are really super duper starting out, not knowing at all what that even means, please head over to my YouTube channel and watch my playlist for my techniques. It's a beginner series that you are free to watch. You can find it at bit.ly, so bit.ly/learn-to-knit. Just one word. Popping that in the show notes as well for you. So just go ahead and save that somewhere so that you can refer back to it. But if that's not working out for you, I teach continental knitting. For me, this is the most natural one. You can also try different versions of knitting. There's another way to do it. They call it the throwing, I think is what it's called, where you just hold the yarn in the other hand. It's slightly different, but the end result is the same. It might work better for you. So just go ahead and, just Google it or type it in on YouTube and see if you can find some really great beginner videos that suit your needs. Number 2, the second step is obviously gather your supplies. You're going to need supplies when you start knitting. My recommendation, I know it's summertime, so you don't really want to do something super bulky or thick, but fall is coming, winter is coming. For beginners, I always recommend using, at the very least, a medium weight yarn or a more bulky yarn. And the reason for that is that it knits up very fast, which means you're going to have a result in your hands really quickly. Definitely stay away from cotton if you are a beginner, because you're using a very thin needle and a very thin yarn, and it takes a long time, even for somebody who knits pretty quickly like me. And sometimes it can get, a little boring. You've heard me say this before. I have multiple knitting projects going at once because I do get bored easily with them. So I can switch them out and never feel that boredom. But if you're brand new and you're just learning the techniques, it is highly recommended to use a little bit of a bulkier yarn. One of my favorite yarns to use, and I'm also going to direct you to her page for designs that are very simple, is a yarn called Hue and Me by Lion Brand. And it's made by a designer called, her name is Alexi, and she has the brand 2 of Wands. So you may have heard me talk about it in the past. As a matter of fact, she was on the podcast for an interview just a couple of weeks ago, and her designs are geared towards beginners. They can also be advanced, but most of them are for beginners. So I highly recommend her designs for any beginner. You can find some really beautiful ones and some that knit up really quickly. And this is her own yarn line. So you definitely will find a whole bunch of designs that utilize this yarn, which I highly recommend, again, for a fast result and, building your confidence that you can actually do this and that this is, in fact, a fun hobby. So step number 3, if you are a beginner knitter and you don't know where to start, please find yourself a community of knitters, if that's local or if it's online like ours, the Knitting Mamas community. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're somebody who rather sits together with people and knit in a setting where you can talk and chat back and forth. Or if you're somebody who prefer to do it in their own home, there's places for you. So again, I highly recommend you come into our knitting community. Again, we have a monthly virtual meetup, but I know there's also local meetups. We have one in our town in the library. So just look out for that if that's more your cup of tea. And yeah, find your group of people who are either trying to learn how to knit or who already are knitters so that they can show you how it works and that it's a really amazing thing to learn. So support and motivation from fellow beginners, I think, is a great thing to keep you going, and I think it's also really nice to have other moms in a group so that you can talk about other things, which is, by the way, what we do in the Knit and Chill Circle. We chat about all kinds of stuff. We all relate to each other because we're moms. And that's just a little bonus, of course, of our specific community because, we're knitting mamas. So we talk about other things as well while we knit. So let's recap these 3 steps really quick so that you can actually go ahead, get your stuff, and get on the way to learn the new craft and really use knitting for the amazing benefits that I talk about all the time on this podcast. Get a pattern that is suitable for a beginner, that does not frustrate you and that's easy to complete. Gather your supplies, get a medium weight yarn, get some good knitting needles, and you're on your way. And join a community, if that's virtual, our community, any other community, or something that you have in person, maybe locally. Doesn't matter. I just encourage you to take that first step today and get started on your knitting journey. I cannot wait to hear all about it. If you are loving this episode and if you're feeling like, yes, this is exactly the episode I needed to get my journey started, please share this episode in your Instagram stories and tag me at The Knitting Mamas. I would love to shout you out in return as well. And I can't wait to welcome you in our community. As a matter of fact, we have a free challenge coming up on July 30th, which I'm so excited about. If you've been around for a little bit, you know that I talk a lot about making extra time for the knitting hobby because a lot of us are kind of like, oh, I don't even know when to put this in my day. And the challenge that we're actually running is based off of my free workbook that you can download. And we are going through the workbook together. We're going to spend 3 days together every day at noon for about a half an hour. We're going to hang out and I'm going to teach you all my favorite ways of making more time in your day so that you can knit more and you can reap the benefits of this amazing hobby. So I hope you join us in the Knitting Mamas community. Again, it's bit.ly/The Knitting Mamas, bit.ly/The Knitting Mamas. For the free challenge that happens next week, for the Knit and Chill Circle that happens every month, and just for some amazing knitting community. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and thanks so much for tuning in to the Knitting Mamas podcast. Talk to you next week. Hey mama, I hope you've soaked up some great ideas from today's episode. Remember, a happy mom makes for a happy fam. If today's chat hit home with you, it would mean the world if you could leave a 5-star written review on iTunes. Your review will help other moms discover our community and embrace guilt-free self-care. Also, if you're scrolling through Instagram, why not snap a screenshot of this episode for your stories? Don't forget to tag me at The Knitting Mamas so that I can shout you out on my page as well. Plus, that way we can stay connected and spread the self-care magic. Oh, and have you heard about our cozy Facebook community? It's a guilt-free zone where we share relaxing routines, essential oils, and knitting adventures, and so much more. Come join us today at bit.ly/Knitting Mamas and let's unwind together. Until we chat again, take care, mama. And remember, looking after yourself is not selfish. It's essential for that balanced life. Catch you soon right here on the Knitting Mamas podcast.